everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making Jenni's Sunflower Fluff Ring. Just one dome, a couple seed beads, and you'll make a collection, maybe even a field of flowers for this sunflower fluffy ring. If you need any materials, check out the links below to shop with us online. Gather them all up on your bead on it board and let's get started. To start out our sunflower fluff ring, you're going to need a dome. I'm using a 14 millimeter, but I wanted to show in Jenni's that she's using a 10. In case you've gotten a dome in a subscription box or even one of the grab bags, you just need one of those. You can also use a round bead, but what's going to happen is it's going to sit further off your ring or your finger when you're wearing it. The domes are flat on one side, which is going to help. On her one here, Jenni used one color of 11-O's. I'm going to be using two colors to get kind of that darker to lighter realistic sunflower look. I'm using Miyuki's newest glazed colors. These are the the Miyuki Frosted Opaque Glazed Rainbow in the Pistachio and the yellow color, along with a Miyuki 15-O in the Duracoat Galvanized Gold. I have my 14 millimeter dome on here, along with some .006 wildfire beading thread in the green color, because it matches kind of that green yellow that I have going on. I'm going to take that, put a stop bead on the end of about 4.5 feet, and I put the needle through the dome. So you didn't have to watch me count my first 17. I put those on ahead of time. I'm using the pistachio color or the darker color to start around the bead. I put those 17 beads on right after the dome, and then I'm going to take my needle and thread back up through the dome toward the beads that I just added. And that'll sit kind of right and force itself almost toward the top of the dome. See how it sits kind of off to the side? You don't want it so big around the dome because you want that flat surface to stay down. Here on the other side then, I'll do the same thing. Count that 17, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's also why I had the first ones on so you didn't have to count. So after I have these on, 5, 10, 15, yep, I thought one dropped off. I'm going to take that thread and needle back through the dome again. That's going to put the seed beads on the opposite side. And again, see how they're kind of forcing themselves up on top of the dome? That is okay. So don't worry about that. What we're going to do now is create our little fluff around our bead. So when we wear our ring, the center just kind of sits in the middle and you get that little floral look. To do so, I'm going to take one side of my thread and my needle and go to one side of the piece. I'm going to go through my first bead and come out between the first and second bead. I'm going to do a pattern here. So in her loops, Jenni took 9 beads and made her loop out of 9 beads. I'm going to do 11 just because it's a little bit bigger of a center. And what I'm going to do for my 11 is I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3 of the darker, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11. So 3 darker, 5 lighter, 3 darker, then that 5 lighter, and then 3 darker. Coming out of bead number 1, I'm going to sew into bead number 2. And look, your first little fluff is made. Again, 1, 2, 3 of the darker, 5 lighter, and then 3 of the darker again. And that lighter being on the outer edge is just going to help to make it a little bit more realistic. Coming out of bead number 2, nothing fancy, just go into bead number 3. And see how those loops are starting to happen. Again, 1, 2, 3, then 5 of the lighter, and then back into 3 of the darker color. Out of bead number 3, go into bead number 4. And the loops will just continue around the whole dome. So I'm going to keep going, building in my loops of my first row of my loops around the outer edge of my 14 millimeter dome. When you come from one end and you finish one side of those 17 and you're working toward the other side, what you're going to do is just continue as normal. So I'm coming out of that last bead here. I'm going to do my 3, then my 5. And if you want it more fluffy or less fluffy, just change those numbers. It's a really super simple change up. Then I'm going to go straight over into the next bead, which is bead number 1 of the next grouping of 17. So on goes the next design, on there, and then I just continue on as normal as I get in and add in all of those beautiful little sunflower petals. As you progress, you're coming back around to the front here, and you can see that I'm coming out my last bead on that second side, and I'm going to sew right into that first bead on the second side. So just like we did when we jumped from one side to the other, we jump back to the first side. And that puts all of our little petals in. Now if you want to, you can see how cute this makes. It makes a great brooch, or even a pair of earrings, even a little pendant if you want to. Very, very simple. To continue on, I'm going to start adding in some of those gold 15s along with some of my 11-0 seed beads. I'm going to add them in another row around the front of the piece, adding in a little bit more fringe to the design and pulling it a little bit closer. You see the addition of some of those gold seed beads there. What we're going to do is we're adding 5 seed beads on, and I wanted to do 2 so I could show you what it's going to start to look like. I'm coming out of my seed bead there, the first one. I added 3 gold 15s, one of my 11, doesn't honestly matter which one. 3 more 15s, skip over the next 11-0 in line, and go through the third one. This is going to lay these beads kind of right towards the front then, towards that center. Once again then, add in your 3 gold, 1 of your 11s, 3 more gold, skip the next bead in line there, and go into the following, and out. And again, I put this towards the front because that way I want to make sure that those beads go toward the front of the design. You can see how that's just creating like another little row of those rounded loops towards the center of the piece. I'm going to keep going around, adding in my 3, 1, 3, skipping over the next bead and sewing into the next one in line. Once you're finished with your gold beads along the center, you can see how they just add a little bit of that multi-dimensionalness to them. I'm coming out of one of my last kind of anchor beads there, and I'm going to sew through my dome bead. I'm on the opposite side here. I'm sewing through the dome bead. I'm going to take that stop bead, move it off, slide it down, and I'm going to tie these thread ends together. I'm keeping the thread on the needle, but I want to tighten this up so that way there's not any slack near the dome bead itself, and the sides of it stay in nice and tight. So I'm going to tie this off and make sure my bead is on the exterior here, and just tie nice and tight around that bead. That way we don't have any extra thread poking out there. And naturally the dome is going to want to sit up as it's on your wrist, or if you put it on a hair barrette, it would look really, really cute as a hair clip. You can comment below too and say the uses that you think this little fluffy sunflower design would make a great use for. The last thing I need to do is to create my band. My band is going to be a right angle weave piece that I'm going to go back and reinforce then with more 11-0s. To start the band, I am going to, first, I'm just going to be using my brighter of my 11-0. And the first thing I want to do is create a little loop actually. So I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3 11-0 seed beads, sewing from one side of the dome over to the opposite side of the dome. And you'll notice I pushed my little petals down there because I want to make sure I'm not sewing through any of them. So I have my beads on there. Coming out this other side then, 2, 1, 2, 3 beads on. sew back over to the original side. You now have little anchor pieces, 3 and 3, that we're going to use to do our right angle weave, and then we'll sew through one more time as we go back and reinforce the sides. I'm going to go up through beads number 1 and 2. And come out bead number 2. Here's where I'm going to start my right angle weave. So to start my right angle weave, I want to go 1, 2, 3, add 3 more beads on. I'm going back through bead number 1 that my thread was coming out of, and that's going to be my first right angle unit. So up through beads number 1 and 2 that you just added, and out through that second bead. Again, 1, 2, 3 beads get added. So into the opposite side of the bead your thread is currently coming out of. And if you need any right angle weave help, we have tons of videos. You can also do a peyote or a brick stitch or a ladder stitch band as well. Sew through the first 2 beads that your thread was coming out of, and then you're off and out the last. 1, 2, 3 more beads go on. I'm sewing into the opposite side. My thread is currently coming out of, sharing that bead. That's going to be my left wall of my right angle unit. Those 3 beads I add the bottom, the right, and the top. Sew through 2 beads. You're always coming out through your right-hand side wall that you created. Again, 3 more beads go on. And you're just continuing till the length that you need it for your ring. Through those first 2 beads that you added, and out. Add 3 more through the first 2, and out. So I'm going to keep going, and you see how that right angle weave is sitting a little bit off. We're going to go and we are going to straighten it out by adding in beads between that right angle weave unit to thicken up and stiffen up our ring section here. So the band I'm going to continue adding till it's to the size that's going to fit around my finger. Whether or not that's a size 8, size 7, European, US, you can grab a ring mandrel or a ring that you like, or just keep checking as you're going around to make sure that you have your band width big enough. Once you have that right angle weave band big enough, you're going to go over to the opposite side, and what we're going to do is sew into that first bead, or that middle bead there on that grouping of 3. However, we want to finish up our right angle unit. So to do so, I'm going to add 1 bead, because I'm coming out the left-hand side there. I'm going to sew through that middle bead after adding a bead. Coming out that bead, again starting on the left and then sewing to the right, add 1 more bead, and sew back through the original bead that your thread was coming out of. The first thing you want to do now is make sure that your band is sitting correct and that it's not twisted anywhere. From here, we're going to go up through that last little right angle weave unit, up through the band. We're going to sew through. So right there I am. See how I have those 2 beads there coming out of that dome bead? 1, 2, right there. I'm going to sew up through the one on the right and then through the dome. We're going to exit along the back of the dome there, making sure I'm not sewing through any seed beads. Making sure my thread is not getting caught on any of that fluff. Coming out then, we're going to go straight down the band. So I'm going to go down through the bead that's on the right-hand side, and then always down through the right-hand side bead. So you can see right side, right side, right side. In between each, I want you to add 1 11-0, and then sew down the next right side bead. Get that starter thread out of there. And once you're down 1, the thread's going to want to go around your beads. You're going to add the next and down through that right side. Add the next, down through that right side bead. So that right side bead is always going to hang out there. As you're doing the band, this will shrink it up just a little bit. And I'm going to show Jenni's band here. See how you have 1 bead in between each of those little right angle units, which is going to have the beads on the side going all with their hole going vertical, and then the bead in the middle going lateral. So I'm going to keep going down this one side, adding my 11 OC beads between each bead of my right angle weave on my band. And then we're going to come back down the right hand side, do the exact same thing to finish up the band of this lovely sunflower fluff. I can't wait to see this in some other poppy colors and some nice springtime pinks and purples. So make sure you post your picture. You can chat below too in the comments and give your ideas for color selections. Can't wait to see that. Also maybe some crystals on the edge and really bling it out along the piece. So here I am finishing up this first row here of this right angle weave and adding the beads along the side. As I come to my last bead here, I'm going to go through my middle bead that sits lateral. I'm not worrying about going through the dome since I've already gone through it so many times. And then guess what? I get to do the exact same thing coming down the opposite side. So now down again what looks to be the right, which was the left previously. And just down, adding a bead between each one of those right angle weaves. And you can see how that really tightens it up and makes for a nice substantial band along the design. So I'm going to keep going along that entire band, adding in that next second row of my seed beads. That'll bring me back to the stop bead, and all we have to do is knot it off. Again, as I get back to the beginning of the design then, I'm just taking my thread end from my original start, tying it with the thread end after this right angle weave band, and doing them together. Again, if you need a little help on the right angle weave band, we have other videos too on right angle weave. I didn't spend a ton of time with it because you can do the band with a multitude of different stitches. And some of you may just want to make little hair barrettes or flowers. So there you can see the band fitting perfectly right on top of that dome bead. I slide it in and I have my beautiful ring look to it. I'm going to slide these on my fingers just so you can see the difference in the dome sizes when you're looking and working and making these fun little beautiful sunflowery beads. Thanks so much for joining me and having fun creating the hopefully multitudes of your sunflower fluff ring. It was a lot of fun to do, and I thank Jenni for the awesome design. You can also check out all the links below to shop with us online if you haven't gotten the dome beads in your subscription box or want to check out all the dome bead colors that we have available. You can also make sure if you haven't yet to give it a little thumbs up and click if you like, as well as make sure that you subscribed. I noticed a lot of you don't subscribe and you'll miss stuff from us here at Potomac Beads. We want you to be able to be engaged in this awesome community and not miss anything. As always, thanks so much for watching. Thank you again to Jenni and enjoy your fun sunflower fluff ring.